mean, I think creativity is among the most misused words that I know of. I think in the world, genuine creativity is seeing things the way other people don't see them. That's like Einstein and Charles Darwin, you know? They look at something other people looked at and they see something different. And I think creativity in communications is the ability to impart information or entertain someone in such a way that they come away not only having been rewarded, but having some concept of the brand who paid for it. Well, I was born in Minneapolis. Both of my parents were born in Iowa, so we're like Midwestern nice. But when I was about 5, they bought a hotel and a restaurant in a little town in Minnesota, a little college town, and we moved there and we lived in a suite in the hotel. It was the only big hotel in town, so all the taxis were there. So I used to take a taxi to kindergarten, and they would know when I got out and I would take a taxi home. And I would go down to the restaurant for breakfast and all the people knew me. And I realized this is because my parents owned this place. And I think it got into my head then, owning the joint is really a good thing. My whole career was partly driven by the idea that I don't want a boss. When I was in college and I took this copywriting course and I thought, this is great. It's easy and it's fun. And I started reading Advertising Age. So when I quit law school, it was at Christmas time, and I was tired of being cold and broke. My brother is a Delta pilot, and he lived in Miami. And so I went home and threw everything in my Camaro and drove to Miami. At that time in Miami, all the good people were freelance because there were no big agencies. And there was a writer there by the name of Rick Boyko. He had won awards, so I went to see him and another guy he was working with and said, I'm a writer. So they said, okay, we'll try you for a week. And that's the way it worked, like for about 3 months. And then finally they said, you know, you seem to be pretty good and we're real busy, so you have a job. So that's how I got into freelance. And I was partners with Rick Boyko for 12 or 13 years. And there were actually 2 influences that caused me to seriously think about an agency. And it was my wife and Pat Fallon, because Fallon and I grew up together. We were best friends in like 9th grade, 10th grade. And in the mid-'80s, Fallon started his agency, Fallon McGilligan. I was up visiting him one time, and we were sitting in his office drinking coffee, and they got the news that he had just gotten the Wall Street Journal. It's a little agency in Minneapolis above a cafe. And I'm like, Jesus, that's amazing. They can do this. I can do this. So I began to think seriously about it. And then my wife, we had 2 little girls who were like 9 and 10, and my wife said, okay, I'm pregnant again. We're gonna have another baby. Don't you think it's time for you to get a job? So that kind of led to the whole agency thing. When I was partners with Breen was the single biggest influence on me in the advertising world. He and I had a lot of different clients in New York and here and there, and one of them was Sam Crispin, the Crispin Agency, which basically was a tourism agency. They had intercontinental hotels, they did Jamaica tourism like that. And I had worked for Sam for a long time, probably about 12 years, and essentially functioned on a couple of his accounts as the creative director. Sam and I were in Jamaica. We had pitched some work to the Jamaica Tourist Board, and we were in Kingston drinking Red Stripe beers. And he gave me a legal pad, and he said, write down here what you want to come over here and join the agency. So I'm like, okay, I want my name on the door, I want this much money. I wrote all this stuff, and I gave it back to him, and he said, okay. So we did the deal, and it became Crispin and Porter. I had no idea how to function in an advertising agency other than just doing work. So the first week I was there, we had meetings. Every day we had meetings. And we had meetings about our 6-month projection and our 1-year projection. So finally, after my first week there, I said, okay, we're gonna stop all this. Here's what we're gonna do from now on. We're gonna try and do something really good every day before we go home. Either a really great creative idea, or get something produced, or get a campaign sold. Every day, we're gonna try and do something great that day. And the future will take care of itself. I didn't know if that was true, but it's the only thing I knew how to do. So that's what we did. And that really became kind of a mantra of the agency. Even when we got big, we would do interviews and people would say, so what do you think the business will be like in 2 years or 4 years? And we were always like, we don't know. Nobody knows what it's going to be like. What we do know is if we're really good today, we'll be okay tomorrow. So when I joined Crispin, when it became Crispin and Porter, we had some really good accounts. We didn't have great people. We had a couple of good writers. We had no good art directors. And I think the best art director in town was a guy by the name of Bill Bogusky. And so I started sending some print work to Bill, and this layout came back and it was killer. So I called Bill and I said, geez, you really uncorked one on this. It's brilliant. And he said, Alex did it. And I had known Bill for a long time. So I'd known Alex since he was 9 years old, literally. And I had no idea that he was such a talented kid. So I hired him, and then I bought Sam out about 3 years later, but we still kept the name Crispin and Porter because I thought it was the right thing to do. And then over the next couple of years, because I was the creative director, I began to realize he's really better at this than I am, Rather than me being CEO and creative director, maybe I should take this guy who's better at it than I am and make him creative director. So I did, and I said, okay, if he's gonna have the same influence with clients, we're gonna have to put his name on the door. So I think our agency culture came from a few things. I think maybe the major thing is that we were nowhere. We were in Miami, we were little. Neither Alex nor I had ever worked at an agency, so we just made it all up as we went along. And we just thought, okay, this seems smart, let's do this. Our hiring criteria never changed, and it was always brains, talent, passion, curiosity, and experience, in that order. And the further we got along, the more we realized it doesn't really matter. I mean, I can remember saying one time to Alex, experience only matters to the degree that the future is going to be like the past. And he said, wait a second. And he wrote it down and sent it to everyone in the agency. So originally when we started, we became the hottest agency in Miami, which people regarded as, yeah, okay, that's a Miami agency and they're pretty good. I guess about 3 years after I started, Adweek named us as one of the top 15 creative agencies in America, which was a very big deal back then. And all of a sudden, people were calling us and saying, hey, I want to come and talk to you guys. The kind of work we were doing was pretty irreverent, and I think we attracted the kind of people who that appealed to.
You must remember this. A kiss is still a kiss. A sigh is but a sigh.
For everyone out there planning a honeymoon, remember this. Palm Beach County has some of the most beautiful views anywhere.
As time goes by.
I mean, Alex used to call them mutts. We hired a lot of people who didn't have pedigrees. They didn't come from BBDO or a big agency. They came from little agencies, or they never had even worked in advertising. I hired a guy, Michael Bettendorf, one time. He came in off the street, and he had just graduated from Berkeley, and he came in and he said, I've heard of you guys. What do you do? And I said, well, we're an advertising agency. And he's like, what is that? So we talked for about an hour, and finally I said, you ought to come to work here. You're a really smart guy. Part of the question is, what did we do to nurture them? But I think maybe the more important question is, how do we find these people? These people were talented when we hired them. We didn't teach them talent. I don't think you can teach talent. I think that you either have it or you don't. I mean, I could go to Juilliard for 10 years, I still couldn't play the piano, because whatever that is, I don't have it. But I think we attracted some really smart, interesting people because we were doing smart, interesting work. People like Rob Riley and Andrew Keller and Tiffany Rolfe, who have big jobs in the industry now. It was kind of like learn as you go. And the other thing is, we had really lofty ambitions. The mission statement we ended up with was to do the most written about, talked about advertising in the world. That was our mission statement. I mean, we were 90 people in Miami, so it's pretty audacious. But that's what everyone saw every morning. When they opened up their computer, it said that. so everybody knew what it was we were about. That had a lot to do with the culture. And the other thing is everybody worked all the time. So that's where their social life was, that's where their friends were. So it was a very incestuous place. I married at least 2 couples in the agency. Alex Bogusky and Jeff Hicks both met their wives at the agency. I think it was mostly good. So we were getting pretty famous in Miami, but we were still pretty small and pretty regional. And then the tobacco companies had this settlement with the government where they were basically funding hundreds of millions of dollars worth of advertising, and every state got a piece. So the state of Florida put the account up. And once we got the account, we sort of looked at it and said, okay, the objective here is to lessen smoking among kids. Essentially, the target audience is 15-year-old kids. Everything that had ever been done said it'll make you sick, you shouldn't smoke, it's bad. And all that does is make kids smoke more. And so we actually began to talk about, we should maybe give them their money back because there's nothing we can do. And this is, I think, when we really began to understand the value of a strategist. The strategist came back with an idea that basically said, look, young kids, they are hardwired to rebel. So we have to give them someone to rebel against. And what they rebel against are white guys in blue suits. Who owns the tobacco companies? So our whole campaign was, we never said don't smoke. All we talked about is there are these corporations who are wooing you to buy a product that's going to kill you.
Hey, excuse me! Sorry to bother you, but we've got a question. Do you know how many people tobacco kills every day? I mean, what you saying? 20, 30, 100?
And it was crazy effective. After we did the Truth campaign, that's when people like Minnie started to call and people like Burger King started to call. And one of our filters for Minnie was, if a car company would do it, we won't.
You do realize you're driving on the wrong side of the road.
This is America, man.
Right then. Good show.
Minnie, I think, was a breakthrough campaign for that reason. And then we got Burger King, and I think, okay, let's see what we can really do. The biggest audience for fast food in America are young men from the time they get their driver's license until they're 29. So we said, we are only gonna talk to them.
Well, then they incorporated the chicken sandwich, and that didn't work out at all. Now they got the chicken fries, all white meat, streamlined for high-speed consumption. You gotta feed the need.
But as Whopper Freakout proved, if you love something enough, absence actually makes you freak out.
I just want my Whopper.
I just want a triple Whopper. I want my Whopper. Get me a Whopper.
And it offended some people, and it was weird, and it just worked like crazy. And we did a lot of experimenting with them, and this was in the early days of the internet. Nobody knew really how to use it yet. And so we said, we can do something with this medium that's more interesting. So Alex and some of his guys thought of this idea of, we'll have this chicken, and you can ask it, you can type in, do this or do that, and we'll have it respond to like 200 commands. We built it ourselves, and we put it up, and in 4 days, it got 400 million hits. Everything we did was designed to get talked about. Sometimes controversy, but always conversation. We were growing very fast, and we had probably about 600 people in Miami. And we were hiring some new digital creative directors. We had 4 people that we wanted, and all 4 said, no, love the agency, love the job, but they didn't want to move to Miami. So I went and talked to Alex, and I said, we need to offer a new kind of perk, which is an alternate lifestyle. And we talked about Boulder, and Alex was enthusiastic because we had a couple of clients there. Alex said, well, I'm gonna go. We had an agency meeting, and we said, okay, we have great news. Starting in July, we're gonna have new office in Boulder, Colorado. And I talked to the agent, and I said, look, this is just gonna be like another floor. We're all gonna be one agency. If you wanna move to Boulder, come and see me and you can move. I figured 60 or 70 people would come in. 240 people came that day and said, I'm going. So at least half the agency moved out to Boulder. My philosophy from the beginning, in terms of a new business philosophy, was always really simple, which is do great work, make sure everyone knows you did it, and then answer the phone. We got a lot of recognition. We were Agency of the Year and Agency of the Decade. The fact is, for that period of time, we did an amazing amount of really good work because we took chances.
Look, stuff either happens or it doesn't happen. Stuff doesn't sort of like happen. Holy.
You know, and looking back on it, the simple thing that the only reason people are going to pay attention to you is if you're giving them information that they need or if you're entertaining them. Otherwise, they're not going to pay attention to you. And that's something we never forgot.
Still Coke taste with 0 calories. And now, before I lock up the secret formula, I'd like to share it with you. Share.
Unpimp your auto. We just dropped it like it's hot. The dub representing Deutschland.
Really?
It's time for a phone.
Really? Really?
To save us from our phones.
We represent the Coke brand. We would like to sue Coca-Cola Zero for taste infringement.
Many of you feel bad for this lamp. That is because you're crazy. It has no feelings. And the new one is much better.
It's Bieber, 6G fever.
What's a 6G?
What the f***'s a Bieber?
Put the fork down.
You know you love it.
Bill Gates? Jerry Seinfeld? Churro? I'm good.
Because we're aliens, and that's what we do.
It's time for a pizza delivery car.
I started talking to MDC in about 2009. And at that point, you know, I was like 50 years old and 95% of my net worth was the agency. So I met Miles Nadella, who had founded this MDC company. And his essential pitch was, you guys obviously know how to run an advertising agency. I just want to invest in you. And it was a really good partnership. And because Alex and our CEO Jeff Hicks were doing a brilliant job of running the agency, I've been doing advertising for a long, long time and was interested in other stuff. I became the chief strategist of MDC and I bought agencies for him. And I found that pretty interesting because I got to go look at a lot of agencies. Although I realized at that point, because we owned a couple agencies that had to be fixed, and I thought it would be easy to fix them, and it was really hard. It was almost impossible. And I realized the only way to fix an agency is one ad at a time, one meeting at a time, one client at a time, every day.